Hi, my name is Laura Ahearn. I'm an associate professor of anthropology at Rutgers University. This is my office. My main areas of research are linguistic and cultural anthropology, and my main geographical area is Nepal. As I talked to people and thought in the next couple of years about what my dissertation topic might be, I started hearing people in the village talk a lot about one social change in particular, and that was in the area of marriage. And in particular, it was the shift away from arranged marriage and capture marriage, which they also used to have in the village, towards what we might call love marriage, elopement, or self-initiated marriage. And it was happening very dramatically, very quickly. And so I chose that as my dissertation topic. And what I wanted to study was how people talked about the decision-making involved in their marriage. How did they describe in their narratives of marriage after the fact how it was that they ended up married? How did they talk in particular about the amount of agency or power that they themselves had? So did they say something like, I had nothing to do with my marriage, my parents married me off to someone I never met, I resisted, I kicked, I screamed, I cried, I did this, I did that? Did they say something like that, which many women did? Did they say something on the other hand, it was my fate to elope with him? You know, I didn't have much to do with it, it just was written on my forehead, it was my fate. So I was interested in how people expressed how they went about their decision-making in the realm of marriage. I was also interested in what seemed to be at the root of this change. There were many different social changes and they're very complexly interwoven, but one thing in particular that had changed in recent years, in the decade or so before I did my research in the early 90s, was that the young women in the village were now literate. They could read and write because they'd either attended school for a couple of years or they had gone to female literacy classes in the evenings. And these literacy skills allowed them to write letters, and they used their literacy skills to write letters to young men. And so as I was doing my research about marriage practices and interviewing people and watching and listening, it only became evident to me that the letter writing was at the root of this social change when I started asking questions about why or how it was that certain people chose elopement. They would say, well, it's just not acceptable to be seen alone with somebody of the opposite sex. We can't go to the movies together, we can't be seen alone, it's just not appropriate. So we write letters. And so these love letter correspondences became the focus of my eventual book, not my dissertation itself. My dissertation was more broadly about marriage practices and how they were changing, and narratives of marriage, and how people linguistically expressed how they came to be married. I got more and more interested in the love letter writing, in this literacy practice, and in how what you do with your reading and writing skills is embedded within a very interesting set of social relations and social changes. I was particularly interested in these love letters as the way that I came to find out about them was that I was in the village and I was asking a group of young people how people who chose to elope, how they got to know one another well enough to decide that they wanted to elope. And they said, oh, we write letters to each other, and that was new to me. It had been months probably since I had started my fieldwork on the topic, but I didn't know about the letters until that moment, and so I started asking, well, what might be in a letter, just hypothetically speaking. And one of the young women said, well, do you want to see mine? I'm already married to this guy. You know, it's water under the bridge. You want to see my love letters? And I said, sure. You know, I looked at them and I said, could I take a couple of notes? They said, what might be in an American love letter? So we talked about that. And eventually they would let me gather love letters, and every few months I'd go into Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, and Xerox them, because there weren't any Xerox machines any closer. bring them back to the village and give the originals back. In the book that I eventually wrote, I use pseudonyms and make sure that confidentiality is maintained. But the only letters I use, and this is an important ethical commitment I made to the people that I worked with, the only letters I use are ones of the couples who eventually got married, so as not to jeopardize the reputations of the women who didn't end up marrying a man that they wrote letters to, because that could be very tricky. So I would gather the love letters, and I started really being interested. I gathered over 200 eventually over the years. And what I got interested in was, in particular, well, a few things. One was how people expressed love and what the culturally specific notions of love were at this moment in time in Nepal, in a village setting. And also I was interested in how the local ideologies of love were wrapped up in broader sort of cultural ideas about what it meant to be a particular kind of person. And that was influenced by these broader social changes, development projects, education, a lot that was going on nationally. So looking at the letters, and then eventually what I wrote about in my book was how these discourses are interwoven throughout the letters, that they're not just about love, and love letters are not the same around the world, although they might have certain similarities, and that you can use the letters as a window onto broader social changes in the village and in Nepal as a whole.